how do you have these guys grouped?
Well, if I'm contending, I understand Chris's point because it's nothing that I haven't said on air before, and it's nothing we haven't talked about in the past. The point about Josh Jacobs being like an every other year good and sucking. If he plays 17 games, if he plays the full season, if he doesn't miss time, he's good. He's good fantasy wise. He missed time 2 years ago. He missed time 4 years ago. When he plays a full season, this is a guy who almost averages 15 half PPR points for a game in his career, regardless of playing time. He averages almost 15 half PPR points. That's pretty good. That's low end RB1 numbers, high end RB2 numbers in terms of on the season. If you can average that, I like that. So if I'm a contender, if I can buy Jacobs, if I can get him, because when you're in a rebuild, that's the last position that you kind of bring in. That's the final piece to the puzzle. That's the cherry on top of the sundae is the running back position. Typically, because when we're in rebuilds, we're trying to get these quarterbacks, these receivers that have that longer lifespan in terms of their playing time, in terms of their age. An older running back, as long as you get the guy that's in the right position, the right situation, that's the kind of guy that can push you over the top. And Josh Jacobs, with the way that the Packers used him last year, with the way that he can still run the football, with how integral he is to that offense, and I think he's still going to be to that offense. Josh Jacobs is a guy I wouldn't mind buying if I'm a contender. James Cook, likewise, is a guy that I'm holding to buying if I'm contending. Of these three guys, James Cook was the one who had the most blow-up games last year. He had 4 games over 25 half PPR points. Chase Brown didn't have a single game of over 25 half PPR points. He was kind of the steady Eddie of things. He was much better over the second half of the season. Chase Brown was. But James Cook, he's not going to score 18 touchdowns again. We all know that. But he is still, like we said before, like Chris said, he's going to be an integral part of that offense. He's by far the best back, the most complete back on that roster. He gives them the best chance to win, handing him the football and taking some of the pressure off of Josh Allen so that Josh Allen doesn't have to get pounded all the time. So he doesn't have to throw the ball to his group of middling receivers. And then when it comes to Chase Brown, I'm not selling him by any means because of the age and because, like I said, he was better over the second half of last season. I'm not necessarily actively buying Chase Brown, but I am definitely going to hold Chase Brown because if you were one of the lucky people who were rebuilding and could get Chase Brown cheap, he finally is coming into his own right now where he is usable as a piece on a contender. So I am buying Jacobs if I'm a contender. I am buying to holding Cook, and I am at least holding Chase Brown.
Okay. I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to agree with Chris on the buying of Chase Brown, but I'm going to flip the other two as my second piece, who I would probably also buy, but we're going to, for the sake of this, call it a hold, Josh Jacobs, and again, for the sake of this, calling it a sell on James Cook. And my reason for that differentiation on those first two, because I agree with what Chris said on Chase Brown. My differentiation on those back two is Josh Jacobs is just a volume hog. I mean, his lowest season in terms of attempts was still more than James Cook last year in his best fantasy season. James Cook actually went backwards in both carries and targets. He just had an incredible year touchdown-wise. Which he had gone 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and then 16 rushing touchdowns. So to me, I expect the rushing touchdowns to average out some kind of way a little bit lower. And then if you're still a sub 40 target guy and a sub 210 carry guy, like it's just hard for me to believe that you're recouping RB13 value from a dynasty perspective. Whereas Josh Jacobs is a guy who has a handful of times in his career now been a 300 attempt guy. He finally got involved in the passing game a little bit more, and is someone who, kind of to Chase's point, when healthy, he's the guy. And I'm just kind of willing to ride that out. Their values are close enough as well that I think just given the volume, I'm willing to be a little bit more bullish. But at cost, I think Chase Brown's a buy all day long, being a little bit cheaper than these other guys. I think he's really explosive and a really good offense. And I've said it a billion times over the last couple of years in this show. Like, at the end of the day, you want running backs and good offenses in fantasy. Like, unless they're a truly transcendent talent, like a good running back on a bad team is a bad fantasy asset. Like, a great running back can still be good on a bad team, but it hurts you quite a bit. So Chase Brown being on one of the great offenses, and not that the Bills aren't as well a great offense, but yeah, Chase Brown's in a hell of a situation, and a great receiver, which helps quite a bit too. Dan, finish us off. What do we got?
All right. Well, so I got Josh Jacobs the hold, James Cook as a sell, and Chase Brown as a buy. And I'll get the obvious with Chase Brown out of the way, because you guys have kind of echoed some of the same points that I was going to make, or we have even made post-draft when we've talked about Chase Brown already. A couple episodes here. If you weren't listening, go back, listen to Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app. But they signed decrepit Samaje Perine. They bring back the ghost of Zach Moss. They spent 6th-round capital on Taj Brooks. All that leads to Chase Brown, who had an 83% share on the ground, 13% target share. Maybe he doesn't get that again to those heights, but it does indicate to me that this is a real chance he's going to get a bell cow level workload yet again due to the lack of talent or a lack of pushing of touches behind him on that depth chart. So that's the obvious part, right? The other part to think about is this. He's still on his rookie deal for 2 more years. The Bengals have a lot of holes everywhere else. Running back is not going to be a priority to them the rest of this season and probably even next year too. So you might get really great capital out of an explosive player on an explosive offense with a lot of scoring opportunities for 2 years on his rookie deal. And then whether it's the Bengals who sign him or if he winds up going somewhere else, you'll be able to sell him then. So he's a buy now and an asset later. It makes him a perfect buy to me in my book. I'm selling James Cook. He had his best season last year. He ain't getting 18 touchdowns again total. It's just not going to happen. This is a guy who had 3 his rookie season total and 6 in his sophomore year, and then he catapulted to 18. Now he's holding out. Now, I don't think he can afford to hold out in any kind of length of time, and I don't think this is a Le'Veon Bell situation. I think that was a warning shot to anybody who ever thought about doing that again. But he's not a type of guy who I want to see lose any conditioning if this goes into training camp, because he relies on that conditioning. He relies on that speed to be able to make plays. He's not going to be a grinded out type of player. He has to be efficient. Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, they're still going to be involved here. And if they don't want to pay James Cook and he's hell-bent on being paid, well, then he might only be on Buffalo for 1 more season. Who knows what happens to his situation off of that? I think his value is as high as it can be right now, because I think you know what you're going to get out of him this season. If somebody else is a contender, I want to sell him off right now. Future first-round picks are on the table at his value. Even other low-end RB1s are in the same trade value as a James Cook. I'm willing to take anything in that range for him to move off now. And then I get to Josh Jacobs. Why is Jacobs a hold to me? Well, I think he hits that perfect sweet spot where I don't necessarily want to buy him for the value he costs, but I don't want to sell him off for that value either. It's unilateral either way. Jacobs is still 27, so he has 2 more prime running back years, just going off the usual parameters, 27 and 28. So you have 2 years of prime football left in him. While he had a really good season last year, the Packers offense as a whole disappointed. There is an argument to be made that if they're better as an offensive unit, there'll be even more scoring opportunities. So at least be able to maintain the scoring opportunities that he had last season, which made him an RB5 overall. You guys talked about, he's good one season, bad the other. Well, those bad seasons, he's still RB20 on a points per game basis. Those bad seasons because he was injured, not because necessarily the production was killing you. He's still a starting running back. Maybe not the RB1 level that you hope for when you get a Josh Jacobs, but still a starting level who's not killing your lineup. So either way, it's a unilateral decision if I try to move him or get him. But he's a sweet spot value pick if I'm a contender right now who has a 2-year window and is good whenever he's on the field, regardless of a high floor. So I'm holding Josh Jacobs for that reason.
Hey, Dan, if you're a contender that's holding on, that has Cook, and the Jacobs owner is selling, would you consider that straight up or no?
It's about even. That would be another unilateral situation right now. And right now, James Cook is actually, his value is a little bit higher.
A little bit higher.
is a little bit higher, just enough where I can get those first rounders or those high end wide receiver 2s, low end RB1s that I was talking about there. So I would probably look for something else like Josh Jacobs, but I think their value dynasty wise is pretty even right now.
We